Welcome to Gutter Talk, the show all about comics and graphic novels. I'm your host, Matt Mitchell. In this episode, we have a special new segment, so keep watching, but first, let's get into the new issues I read in December. First up is King of Spies, #1. This issue started off with quite the bang. I counted at least 12 different headshots. It's definitely a mature comic, but one that James Bond fans will definitely love. It's very much 007 inspired, sometimes too much. I hope that future issues will focus more on Roland King as he is now in his old age, rather than his past exploits. But I understand that they had to illustrate how top-notch of a spy he was. The story is kind of a reflection of anti-establishment sentiment towards governments and police that people are starting to feel. Roland King was a spy who used to protect these people and fight for their agendas. And now in his old age, he's kind of bitter and jaded and realizes that maybe that wasn't always the right thing to do and is going to turn the table on his former masters. Next, I read Hellboy, The Bones of Giants, #2. I'm still really enjoying this series. In this issue, we see Hellboy doing more investigative work, and we see his mind bonding more with the Hammer Gods. I don't want to spoil it, but it really feels like that we're leading up to a big battle in issue #3, so I can't wait for that one to come out. Next up is Dark Knights of Steel, #2. Batman and the Elves have been imprisoning any users of magic, and we see that a version of Black Lightning has a rival kingdom, and he is very much against this family of aliens, the Elves. What I thought was kind of funny is that the villain in this story is the Green Man, I assume Green Lantern. And another series out right now is DC vs. Vampires, where the Green Lantern is also a villain. So does someone at DC not like the Green Lantern or just really want him to be a villain? It's kind of a weird parallel I noticed. I don't know if anyone else reading these series spotted that as well. This issue also introduced Wonder Woman and a new character, Princess Zala Jor-El, who appears to not have the same ethics or self-restraint as Batman and Superman. I just mentioned it a second ago, so let's move on to DC vs. Vampires, #3. This issue really ramped things up. There were a ton of fights, and we finally got to see where Green Arrow has been holding up all this time. There's a lot of distrust amongst our heroes still, but we're that much closer to that Batman-Green Arrow team-up teased on the cover of the first issue. This panel here I was actually going to feature as the quote of the month because it is funny, but it might actually be an important panel foreshadowing the future of Batgirl in this series. Could she possibly turn into a vampire because of what happened here? What do you think? And last for new issues is Darkhold Spider-Man, #1. This one-shot sees the world falling apart. People's minds are slowly decaying, and Spider-Man is physically putting people's bodies back together with his webs. The story didn't directly connect to Darkhold Alpha, so I'll have to see how the story all ties together in Darkhold Omega. It's possible I'm missing some information from the other one-shots that I haven't read yet. I didn't have a chance to read any graphic novels this month because I was traveling, but that leads me to my special new segment, On Location. This is Batman Alley in São Paulo, and this really shows Brazil's appreciation for comic books. Comics are available everywhere in newsstands just like this, but instead of weekly new issues, it's more like collected paperback editions. Other items you'll find are the Italian cowboy comic Tex Weller and Monica and Friends, which is kind of like the Archie comics. And they even have an entire library dedicated just to comics. Unfortunately, it was closed during my visit, but I did get to visit a few local comic shops and pick up gifts for my family, and I also grabbed this Portuguese Spider-Man comic for myself, as well as a Tex issue and the Christmas special for Monica and friends. If you're a subscriber to my channel, you'll know that I'm a big fan of board games, so while I was down in Brazil, I met up with my friend Robert, the designer of Comic Hunters. This is a board game all about collecting Marvel comics that is currently only available in Brazil. I'll be making an English how to play video for this, so be sure to watch that, and hopefully this game can get the international distribution it deserves. Now let's wrap up this episode by sharing your reading recommendations, and I'll get you your quote of the month. This month's comes from The Bones of Giants #2, when two dwarfs appear out of nowhere to protect Hellboy the Thunderbearer, and his reaction is, "Where's Snow White when you need her?"